Let us be attentive. It's verse 3. It's the same one as last week. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus said, blessed are those who are mourn, for they will be comforted. It's the word of God for us, the people of God, and we say, thanks be to God. It's the poor in spirit. It's those who mourn. It's the very first two places that Jesus starts out his invitation to the crowd. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. It's an invitation to do the very opposite of what Facebook and Instagram and all the other fun things want us to do. You should be happy all the time. Everything is good. It's always good. It's great. I always get queasy when I go talk to my fellow clergy, or there are certain types of folks who are just happy all the time, and it drives me bonkers, right? You can't be happy all the time. Stop. Just stop. We go to a clergy event. How you doing? I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. No, you're not, because you're human. You can't be. It's impossible. And so we had this little side joke amongst some of us who are very real with each other, right? Do you want the Christian answer, or do you want the real answer? I'm great, I'm blessed, I'm awesome, I'm just great, right? And you put up this facade. That's why you only put the nice pictures up on Facebook. Do you ever put the pictures up where your kid's all whacked out, right? You know, the Christmas card? Please don't tell me you put the ugly picture on the Christmas card. No! The Christmas card you want to send out to everybody, so everybody goes, aren't they a lovely family? They're just a great family. No one ever sends the 18 pictures it took to get that one perfect shot out. No one sends that one. But that's life, isn't it? And when you see that perfect Christmas card, if you've had children and if you went through those 18 pictures, you go, how did they get that picture? How did they do it? Because you know that it wasn't that easy. And you know it wasn't that clean. Even if the moment of bliss was good, there was a fight about who was going to wear what shoes and what outfit, and this is scratchy, and this is the wrong shirt, and I don't want to wear this morning because my 5-year-old wanted to wear sweatpants to church. So there was 20 minutes of my life I won't get back discussing why sweatpants to church is probably not the best idea. The idea of mourning was a public act. It's important to remember that mourning was a public act. We read a little bit about Jonah where, remember the king, he put on sackcloth and he told the people, mourning was a public activity. You didn't go to your little hole and pretend that you were quiet, and it was a public act. Because you mourned as a community, you mourned as a group, which is why prayer time, I love our prayer time here, because we rejoice together and we're happy. When my 18-year-old moved out, I know that feeling. I can be happy with you because it's fun. But there's sadness that goes to that. When somebody gets test results that they don't like, we can all mourn together because we've all had test results that we do not like. There's the uncertainty of not knowing what the outcome is. There's a comfort in the fact that you're not alone. And when we pretend we're on our own, you get this thing called marriage. Because that's what we've turned marriage into. Two people get married. Those people throw the party. And then they go off on their own. Good luck. Good luck. When people got married in ancient times, the community throwed the party. And while people were at the party, they would move the furniture into the house. The couple wouldn't do anything. And after the wedding and the party, they would lock the couple in the house, and the community would have a party all around the house to make sure the couple didn't leave for a couple days. They'd bring them food, they'd drop it off at the door. And when they noticed that a family was in trouble, the family didn't have to say they were in trouble because everybody knew. And so what would the community do? They would go and help and see what they could do. That you weren't on your own. I don't know how people handle a marriage outside of a community. I don't know how people stay married and have in-laws, but that's a whole other conversation. Those are fun. The idea that you are in this alone is the most antithetical thing to Christianity there is. You're not in this alone. And that alone should bring you comfort. That you have friends, that you have family, that you're a part of the body of Christ. So yeah, when you mourn, it's a public thing. You have the opportunity to have other people comfort you. The number one thing I fuss at people that either work with me or under me is when they take my job away from me. Well, I didn't want to bother you with that, so I did it. What do you mean you did it? That was my job. Why'd you do that? That's my job. Well, I didn't want to bother you. Yeah, but I want to do that for you. When you take that away from me, you take that opportunity for me to serve you away from me. If you don't mourn with other people, you're taking their ability to comfort you away from them. And then we don't have an exchange of gifts. We don't have an exchange of relationship. There's an authenticity that happens when we are, wait for it, real with each other. When you give each other the real answer. How you doing today? My leg hurts. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't drink enough water yesterday. True story, because apparently when you take high blood pressure medicine, you have to drink a whole lot of water, and that, whatever. And then when you're sick and you're also dehydrated, you got to drink a whole lot of water. You know what was funny? Basketball coach, how you doing? No, not good, I'm sore. Because I learned I need to drink water. Yeah, my mother-in-law, blah, blah, blah. We had a conversation we would have never have had yesterday. Never have had. Because I'm trying to eat my own sermon. And I could have said, yeah, I'm doing great. And you know what that would have been? A lie. Because I was sore. And I didn't want to coach basketball yesterday to the 5-year-olds, which isn't really coaching. You're herding cats, trying to keep them from killing each other. That's all you're doing. That's all you're trying to do, No, the 8-year-olds are fun. Like, coached my tail off, it was fun. Kids had a great time, they're learning, blah, blah, blah. That's fun. 5-year-olds, herding cats. You can get anybody with a heartbeat that's willing to go, stay in between the big black lines, guys, and you're fine. That's good. But we've gotten to know each other because we've had honest conversations. We've built this crazy thing called a relationship. Look out. It happens when you're a part of a community, when you're genuinely real with each other. But there's the other side of mourning. There is an emotional blessing of sadness. When you do something that hurts somebody else's feelings, you should feel bad. I love kids because they're object lessons all day long. I feel bad. Good, you should. But I don't want to feel bad. No, you should feel bad. This is a good thing. Why is feeling bad a good thing? Because it means you care. If you didn't care, now we'd have problems. But I didn't mean to hurt him. I know you didn't. I don't care. I'm glad you feel bad. What would make them feel better? Go give him a hug? Go give him a hug. Sounds good. 15 minutes later, the other one hurt me. He hurt me! I want to take away all his toys. Oh, the script has flipped. It's this idea of reconciliation. It's a very Catholic word, but it's what Jesus did at the cross. We should feel bad when we sin because we screwed up. And usually when we sin, we hurt someone else. And we say stupid things. Maybe I just say stupid things. My wife remarries me every single morning because somehow she gets up and wants to do this again another day. Even though I probably hurt her feelings the previous day. Oh, and oh, wait for it, she probably hurt mine the previous day. I don't understand. Why do we have more disagreements over the weekend? It's because we talk to each other during the weekend. Because during the week, we're doing this. Who has to do this? I got to do the chores. I got to do this. I got to do this. We also have the best time on the weekends because we get to spend time with each other on the weekends. But that inherently causes the human condition to come out in conflict. No, I don't want any more projects around the house, and the deck is just fine. But I was overruled, and so we will be redoing the deck. But there is a blessing in feeling bad when you hurt each other's feelings, because that's usually when relationships go south, is when you stop caring that you've hurt the other person's feelings. That you no longer care that they're in a negative position. You can always tell when people are ready to leave their job. They just quit caring. That's not your best work. I don't care. Those of you that had to have those conversations with employees or been a part of those, you just know. It's a fancy word. It's called checked out, right? People are checked out. They're just turning in whatever they need to do. Go ask any senior in high school or college, right? There's a certain point, they don't feel bad about turning in awful papers anymore. They just don't. They don't have a sadness. And in some ways, if you're a parent, you're also sad. You're like, oh, that's just awful. Even though we could probably all go, we've checked out too at a certain point in a certain track of our lives because we know it was over. Just couldn't wait to get there. There is a blessing about being emotionally engaged. There's a non-arrogance. Blessed are the poor in spirit. When you've already moved on, you forget about everybody else. When you turn in something really awful at work, you're hurting everybody else at work. We all know this. You're hurting yourself, but yes, you hurt everybody else. When you check out and just do the bare minimum, somebody else is going to have to come and clean it up behind you. Blessed are the poor in spirit has a lot to do with humility, understanding that you still have to sacrifice. It's not all just about you. Which is why I always apologize even though I was right. I'm the only one who does that, right? Yeah? Okay. I could be right. It doesn't matter. Perhaps I was wrong, but more than likely, the relationship and knowing that I've hurt the other person's feelings is more important than me being right most of the time. There's not that many issues that are worth losing a relationship over. But there is a humility of being poor in spirit, of not being my lovely 17-year-old son who's beating the heck out of the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old in basketball in the backyard. Yes, you can win. He's really good. He's also 17. The rim's also this high. But if it comes at the expense of another person, is it really fair? Does it matter if you're right? The major question that we asked is, what is the win? It becomes part of existing in a community. You can be right and still be the one apologizing. To have empathy. There's this weird thing, it's called kindness. It's a weird thing. You don't have to, but you do it anyway. That's grace. God didn't have to come and send Jesus. Remember that. God didn't have to do any of that. But God did it anyway. Were we 100% wrong? Yes, we were. Was God 100% right? Yes. And yet, Jesus still comes and says, I'm sorry. There's an empathy that happens when Christ comes and says, I'm sorry you're hurting. I'm sorry you're wounded. There were many people that caused their own woundedness, and yet Jesus is still empathetic and still says, I'm sorry. Let me help. Come, sit. It's a fascinating thing. There's a bunch of products that cause injuries. There's a lawnmower company. I'm not going to tell you which one, so that way you don't figure out that it might be yours. But let's say there was this lawnmower company and their lawnmowers weren't performing up to par and they started injuring people. Okay? Some products failed and people got hurt. And it's an interesting study because the first thing the company did was the one thing the legal department told them, don't do. Don't do this because you're going to get even more trouble. It's stupid. It's not in your best interest. They said that they were, wait for it, sorry. They said they screwed up, and they individually contacted every single person that was injured. The CEO even made individual phone calls to those people that said, we screwed up, and I'm sorry you got hurt, and we're going to do everything we can to not only fix this where it never happens again, we're going to do our best to make it right by you. Why is this significant? Because they were sued the least amount than any other product liability that they could find. People didn't want to sue. They just wanted to be heard. They just wanted someone to say, I'm sorry. The hospitals that do the same thing, I'm sorry, people are doctors. People are nurses. Wait for it, they screw up. It happens. It's a horrible thing. They make mistakes because they're human. And it's a tough job. And hospitals that say, one, wait for it, we're sorry. Number two, we screwed up. How can we make this right if that's possible? And we feel really bad about this. Those hospitals were sued far less. Far, far less. And I like data. I enjoy this experience more than it probably sounds, right? Tom's already like, oh my gosh. And my wife's not in the room, so you can't keep turning around and looking at her, but this has been a fun adventure. Because the sermon kind of wrote itself in my car buying experience. My wife has had 2 Subarus. She loves Subaru. At 150,000 miles, her transmission went kaput. Now, as a person who meticulously maintains anything that she owns, that bothers her. It bothers me. Subaru is supposed to be a good car. 150,000 miles, transmission goes out. We go in, they're like, hey, it's going to be 11 grand to fix. We're like, thank you very much. So, of course, that's not the news I want to hear. The service department was really very empathetic. I will absolutely use that word. He was very ministerial. I hate giving this news. I'm really sorry. I hate it when I have to tell people this. I felt bad for him that he had to tell me that my car wasn't going to drive much anymore. I felt bad for him that he was having to tell me the bad news. Service manager even came out. His name is Gene. Why do I know Gene? Because Gene was kind. I know Gene's name because Gene was kind. He said, look, I'm going to try to get you over to sales. Maybe they can start the conversation. And the whole time in my mind, I'm like, First of all, I got to figure out a way to tell my wife that her car that she really likes now doesn't run, and that $11,000 is now going to be the cost to fix a car that's probably worth $8. So that's fun. And now we're going to have to do one of the most exciting things in the world, buy a car. And so in the midst of I don't understand, I bought this car to last a lot longer than that. The sales guy was a sales guy. It was towards the end of the month, and you know what's the most important thing at the end of the month? Getting the what? I could have killed him. He didn't care about my car. He cared about him and getting the what? Which made me so happy that he was the guy that was trying to figure out whether or not we should buy a car. And I swallowed. I was like, look, let me tell you. Look, I tried to explain to him the experience that we had. And he's like, all right, we'll send you something over. Well, he sent me over some $50,000 thing and marked our car as a $500 trade-in. Now, how does that make you feel? Oh, yeah. Just take some salt and just rub it in there, right? And I didn't show that to my wife for all of the smartest reasons in the world that I like being married. I called him back and I was like, look, there's a line at the top that says you're giving me a $2,000 discount, right? Yep. Why don't you slide that down to the trade-in line and just make it work? Because I know you don't care, and at the end of the day, the numbers are all the same. But if you're going to get us in the door, at least make me feel like the car's worth something, because we invested a lot into this, and now we're having to deal with that. Fine. Shoot an email across. Manager calls up. What do we need to do to make this deal happen? Never call me back again. I slid down to the Toyota dealership up the way. Much different experience. Mainly because they were really happy that the Subaru screwed up, and they were more than happy to take advantage of it. Went back to pick the car up, and Gene, how'd it go? We're at the Toyota place. I just need to get the car because and I mourned with Gene. I said, Gene, it's like they just didn't quite understand our position. He said, stay right there. Hold on one second. And he called Tyler. And Tyler's the head of sales, and Tyler came down and goes, hey, what's going on? Gene explained to him what happened, and Tyler's first words out of his mouth were, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry you had that experience. You got 5 minutes? Come down to my office. Reads the notes, turns to me again, says, I'm sorry. Sorry you had that experience. What can I do to make this better? Is she interested at all? And I was like, dude, she's your lifelong customer. You're the ones that lost her, not me. Tyler was very kind. It was a completely different experience. Completely different experience. Yeah, this week I'm going to go pick up a Subaru. Not because they got it all right. It's because they said they were sorry and they screwed it up. And he did something he didn't have to do. He gave us a nice 800 number. And he's like, look, Subaru has an 800 number. Your car shouldn't have had that experience. Call them, and they're going to have a case number. They might send you $1,000. They're interested in caring about your experience. Just want to be heard. Not saying the situation was fun. But in the midst of having to replace a car that we clearly didn't have enough money to replace, for someone to mourn with us and help us through the process of trying to figure out how to do things, because I really enjoy picking up my son every day at 3 o'clock in my car. And juggling cars and car seats and having all that work. Being heard and being seen. I'll always remember there's a Native American tradition. They're not quite sure because they have a particular spirituality that ancestors can visit them at any time. And so in the midst of the darkness or in the midst of the fog or early morning dew, if they're not quite sure if something in the distance is a spirit or a person, there's a phrase that they use. I see you. They don't have a dialogue, they just say, I see you. And they repeat it. I see you. They continue about their day. And if they happen to see something, they say, I see you. I'm reminded of that when somebody's holding a sign at the intersection and nobody wants to make eye contact because you're going to feel guilty. Nobody likes to feel guilty. Don't know why we feel guilty. Lots of reasons. As a society, how did we fail this individual? The simple act of seeing someone and waving, perhaps mourning with them in a moment, not asking you to fix their problems, but to just say hello. Good morning. The mother who has a screaming toddler in the grocery store that wants to practically just transport herself somewhere else. It gave us a lot of comfort when we were younger parents to know that somebody older than us, I've been there, it'll get better. Best advice I ever got as a parent, there has never been a child in the history of humanity that has graduated high school in diapers. So it's okay if potty training's not going well. It'll be okay. I remember that to this day. It's hilarious, but isn't it true? It'll be okay. Not today. It's not great right now, but it'll be okay. Those of you who mourn, I see you. We hear you. Let's practice that. It's a wonderful act of being a community. God forbid it's a wonderful act of being a Christian. Let us pray.